Today's topic is going to really stretch across a few different ideas in what we call Jewish mysticism. First of all, reincarnation. Is this something that Judaism teaches and believes in, or does it come from somewhere else? At that, we want to also talk about the whole idea of the afterlife. What happens to the soul when it leaves this world? Is that the end of our story, or does it continue? Well, what goes on there? The ultimate idea that we want to also touch on today is the concept of the resurrection of the dead, the concept of Mashiach coming one day, the Messiah, and the idea of the world reaching its perfection and living eternally at that time and place. So let's try to, put all these ideas together. First of all, reincarnation. So many people here at Osameach ask me, during the different classes, do we, in fact, believe and teach about reincarnation? And, I sometimes have to laugh at that because really the concept of reincarnation, not only do we teach it, it comes from Judaism. Judaism is where the concept of reincarnation really finds its roots, its source. Now, a very interesting idea about reincarnation, it's what we could call a true test of faith, because other ideas that are really hidden, we can try to test at least on some level. For example, belief in God. When you look around a world like this, so fascinating, so complex, so much detail, it testifies, it screams of a divine creator. So believing in God is not necessarily so difficult, although there are some, unfortunately, that do not yet understand and appreciate that. But many do believe in the divine creator, and that's almost easy to see once you want to believe that. There's proofs for that. Reincarnation has no real proof because we are not conscious of a past life if we ever lived one. We're not conscious of it. All we are aware of, barely, struggling to be aware of this life. So we can't testify to reincarnation. The average person doesn't know a thing about it, nor does he experience anything connected with that. And if there are random stories that kind of say that a person experienced it, so it's hardly believed, and it's not really something that you could base an entire way of life on. So where do we get the idea of reincarnation from? So the truth is, like all of Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, reincarnation is rooted in the prophecies received by the early righteous leaders and ultimately the Jewish prophets and leaders like Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. It's taught in the oral tradition that along with the different ideas of Kabbalah, reincarnation was explained by Moses to that generation of leaders. Meaning in Moshe's time, there were select leaders that received a secret tradition from him that was part of the Torah. We call it the oral part. And within the oral, there was the secret part of the oral Torah. And they received this tradition of reincarnation. In fact, the Bible itself has a lot of hints to the idea of reincarnation, although it doesn't explicitly mention reincarnation, but in a hidden way it does speak of it. Although in order to appreciate that, you must first have received certain keys to open up those secrets. For example, the Zohar is really one of the first sources, which is essentially a recording of the oral Torah. The Zohar is really written at the same time as the Mishnah. So when we look at Jewish law, which everyone accepts as authoritative and binding, all Orthodox Jews follow it, we understand that the Mishnah that was written around the Common Era is a recording of a tradition that was clearly received and proven on many levels at Har Sinai, the Sinai revelation. What we interestingly connect once we see the Zohar written by some of the same rabbis. The most famous of them is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He is mentioned in the Gemara and the Mishnah. His book, the book that he taught, the Secrets of Torah that are recorded in the Zohar, speak about reincarnation in a very interesting place. It speaks about reincarnation when it's speaking about the idea of monetary law. Now, you might think as someone seeking mysticism, seeking spiritual heights, the last place you're going to find a discussion about this concept of souls coming back into this world is dealing with the intricacies of, who owes who money, who damaged what. But it's interesting to teach you that the highest of things, the soul in its highest state, the concept of reincarnation, is really rooted in the most grounded aspect of Jewish law and tradition. And the unbelievable stories that go with this idea, explaining why Jewish monetary law and reincarnation are linked by the Holy Zohar. Very famous story from the Baal Shem Tov, one of the great mystics of the 1700s, one of the greatest of mystics that have ever lived. Today, there are hundreds of thousands, millions upon millions over the generations that are following his leadership as the founding father of the Hasidic movement. So, very beautiful expression of this concept of reincarnation in its most grounded sense comes in the story. One day, he told his main student, the Dov Bear from Mizrich, he tells him to go to a particular place by a lake and spend an afternoon there. So, of course, following the advice and instructions of his Rebbe, he goes and sets himself up at a distance watching this particular scene by the lake. A soldier comes up on a horse, comes out, rests, has a bit of a snack, gets up in a hurry, seemingly late, runs off, not realizing that he dropped his wallet full of money. He goes on his way. A man comes, sits down to have a snack, takes that wallet, finds a lot of money, takes it and leaves. After that, an older man comes, seemingly a poor man, sits down to have a few scraps of bread, very tired, takes a nap, and as he's napping, the soldier comes back in a fury, crazy, screaming, looking for his wallet, sees this old man resting exactly where he was, grabs him, wakes him up, hitting him, beating him, where's my wallet, where's my wallet, you stole my money. The old man screaming, I don't understand, I don't know where you are, I never saw a wallet, what do you want from me? He beats him almost to death and then runs off. The whole time, the Maggid of Mezrich is watching this story and is very obviously confused. What is going on? You have one man loses a wallet, another man finds a wallet, and a third man is beaten half to death over that wallet. So he returns to the Baal Shem Tov, who explains to him the really secret behind what was going on. He explains that in a past life, two people went to court over a monetary dispute. Essentially, one person wronged another for, we'll say, $5,000 and was not willing to admit it and was not willing to give the money back. So they went to court. The judge, without really investigating the case properly, just listened to the seemingly wealthier man and unfortunately sided with him, which was a wrong decision to do, and the person was left with his money taken from him wrongfully. So in heaven, it was decided that they would all come back to the world again to fix that wrong. One, to pay back what he wrongfully took, the other to receive what he wrongfully lost, and the third to be beaten, and that was his punishment, for not doing his job to properly investigate and ask some simple questions which would have clarified the fact that really the money should go to the other person. So we see in this story, unbelievable how profound it is, and anyone who hears such a story, and there are others like this, should start to become almost afraid. God is in fact watching everything we do. Our actions, especially between our fellow human being and ourselves, that's recorded, that's measured. We don't have the right to take what's not ours. It's certain that we don't want what's ours to be taken from us, but we also have to be careful not to take what's someone else's and make it our own. That is on some level stealing. Even if you swindle it, even if you are shrewd in receiving it, if it was unjustified, you may have to come back again to return that. So we see reincarnation is a vehicle that God provides for us to fix, to make amends, to make a wrong right. And it's interesting because you come a whole lifetime to do this. It's not like you have an extra day that you go back and work. It's a whole lifetime that we're faced with a need to do this. And this is specifically in when we wrong a fellow person. Now, we don't always think of wronging ourselves, but there's also an aspect of reincarnation that really relates to one's personal life. Me, myself, the fact that I'm a body and a soul living in this world with a responsibility, with an opportunity. So another reason for reincarnation explained is that if I don't accomplish what was meant for me to accomplish, and that's a lack of doing positive things. And there's also, there's a chance to come back and fill in that void, to come back to fill in what was missing, because again, a person's soul is created with a certain amount of potential. And the soul is stuck with that potential, and it needs to come into this world and live in a body in order to actualize, fulfill that potential. And so a great injustice we do to ourselves is when we don't really take on that opportunity and that challenge and work together. Instead, we become misguided, distracted, even selfish on some level, just pursuing baseless things, pleasures, And a life can be wasted. Much, much precious time can be wasted. And at the end of that life, when we go to heaven and we're judged and we're measured, it's seen what we accomplished, and we feel that tremendous regret, that loss. A third, more serious purpose and reason behind reincarnation is, unfortunately, when we go a bit further than just not accomplishing what we were supposed to, but the opposite, destroying, doing the things that are damaging and harmful to ourselves, to our soul in particular, and to the world around us. That damage we are held accountable for. You know, it's interesting, there's a famous saying from one of the great mystics, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, a great Kabbalist and a Hasidic leader. If you believe that you can destroy, then you should actually be a bit smarter than that and believe you could build. And that's an opportunity that we have when we come into this world. We have an opportunity to build, but unfortunately when we destroy, so then we have to come back to fix all that what we destroy. And that's another reason why we keep coming back over and over again. Now, it's interesting, God's kindness is infinite, and we can come back many, many, many times to fulfill all of what we must. But of course, when you realize that we come back over and over again, so anyone would realize that it's obviously much more advantageous if we fulfill what we need, the sooner the better. The less times we have to come back, the better it is for us. So here's a real application of that, and we'll connect to the other idea we wanted to discuss is how does this concept of reincarnation relate to the end of days? Essentially, there's a question, very fascinating question to me at least, is that if I come back to this world many times, then when the Messiah will come and we'll all be alive again together at the end, so how many me's will there be? So that's a very fascinating question, and the answer to that is this. There are different parts to our soul, and all those parts require fixing and perfecting. The amount of times it takes me to reach my perfection, the perfection destined for me by God, is the amount of different bodies I come back into this world in. So what essentially can happen is that one soul can be divided into several bodies. And so in the end of days, the answer is there will be a bunch of yous, but different variations of yous, because they'll each take form in a different body, but it will be parts of the soul divided into these bodies. And they will all be connected to the same root soul. So, sounds very nice. You come once, come twice, come 10 times, come 25 times, and it'll just be a dividing of the soul and everything sounds great. But we have to appreciate a bit deeper why it's so important for us to take advantage of the opportunity we have now and not waste it. Because imagine a person coming into the world one time and being so focused and so accomplished that he fixes all of the parts of his soul and, of course, does no damage. So he comes one time and comes out perfect and complete without ever having to come back again. So at the end of days, that person will be in one body. Now compare that to someone that had to come back 25 times. So that same all-inclusive soul power will be divided by 25 bodies. So now, look at the difference. Imagine seeing that one person that has his soul complete within him. What a towering figure, what a beautiful, perfect, wholesome, perfected person that he will represent, and the soul power that one person will represent compared to the soul power of this 25 individual people. So we have a lot to gain by getting it right in fewer times. And again, there are few, these are the holiest of the righteous that we learn about, that are able to get it right in one lifetime. But most people, almost all people, require several lifetimes. And interestingly, it's taught that today we are in fact all reincarnated almost, and we're not going to find someone who it's his first time in this world. And we've all really been through many chances, many tries. And interesting, knowing that should even help us to really connect with the idea of our past and particular struggles we're dealing with now. Because when I see that certain things I have issues with, without even realizing why I have an issue there, or this is difficult for me, or I have this particular test sent to me by God. So one answer to appreciate why I've been given the specific challenges I've been given is because it's connected with my past life. You know, we don't know for sure, and we can't really testify to it, but it answers a lot of questions. The idea of, you know, that I've been here before and I have to make amends for what I've done in the past can answer a lot of different questions. Why I don't have as much as someone else, why I have this struggle and he doesn't. And so we have to know, first and foremost, that God is absolutely just. there is no more loving, giving, just. There's no such thing as more love and kindness and giving and justice than from Hashem. And so whatever we feel we're going through, how difficult it is, how dark things might seem, we have to know that it's all for this ultimate good purpose. And it's all connected with our past. And ultimately, it's going to define our future as well. Because again, the story that we're in the middle of going through right now, this story that began with Adam HaRishon, the first man and woman, Adam and Eve created, is all this length of stories because Hashem is not giving up on us. You know, the first sin drastically changed the course of world history. And unfortunately, what could have been fixed in a short time is taking thousands upon thousands of years. But the idea that we're still here is a sign that Hashem is devoted to us, He's still with us, and He's not giving up on us. And so we also must not give up on ourselves. May we merit with the strengthening of these ideas a greater faith in God, a greater faith in God's providence, and how the things that happen to us are from Him and just. And may we accept our role in working on ourselves to be a better person, better with our fellow, better with ourselves, and better with Hashem. And may we help bring the ultimate completion of all of the rectifications that this world needs to go through so we can merit the coming of the Messiah and the Messianic era speedily in our days.